Back in 2022, I was driving Uber full-time. Late nights paid better, so I usually worked from 8 p.m. until around 3 in the morning. Most nights were routine: bar pickups, airport runs, the occasional chatty passenger. But this one night still creeps into my head every time I drive after dark. It was around 12:45 a.m. on a Sunday. I had just dropped off a passenger downtown and was idling near a 24-hour gas station, waiting for my next ride. The app pinged. Pickup was just a few blocks away, a residential street I'd driven down before. The name on the request was Nathan. I accepted and started driving over. When I pulled up, the street was unusually dark. A lot of the houses had their porch lights off, and there were barely any cars parked along the road. The pickup pin dropped me in front of a small, one-story house. But what stood out was the figure standing at the edge of the driveway, a man wearing a black jacket with the hood pulled up, hands in his pockets, head down like he was looking at his shoes. I rolled down the passenger window a little and called out, "Nathan?" He slowly lifted his head, but didn't answer, just nodded once. Then he walked around and got into the back seat directly behind me. "Good evening," I said, trying to break the silence as I started the trip. The destination was about 30 minutes outside of town, heading into a rural area I wasn't too familiar with. He didn't respond, just stared straight ahead. The first few minutes passed in complete silence. Every time I glanced into the rearview mirror, he was looking straight at the back of my head, his face partially hidden in the shadows. He wasn't blinking much. Something about him felt off. Not drunk. Not high. Just cold. About 10 minutes into the drive, I tried again. "Headed home?" I asked, trying to sound casual. There was a pause. Then he quietly said, "For now." His voice was strange, flat, almost monotone. It made my skin crawl. As we continued, the city lights faded behind us. The roads narrowed, and tall trees lined both sides, blocking out what little moonlight there was. My GPS showed we were still on track, but the destination was surrounded by nothing but forest and a few scattered houses. Suddenly, he leaned forward and said, "Take the next left." I glanced at the GPS. "That's not on the route," I said. "Just take the left," he repeated, his voice slightly sharper. Against my better judgment, I turned down the narrow dirt road. My headlights barely lit the winding path ahead. Thick trees pressed in from both sides, and fog was starting to settle on the ground. My gut was screaming at me, but I kept driving. About a quarter mile down, the road opened up into a small clearing with an old, run-down cabin in the middle. No lights on, no cars, just darkness and silence. "Stop here," he said. I put the car in park and turned slightly toward him. "Is this where you need to be?" He stared at the cabin for a moment before whispering, "Wait here." Without another word, he opened the door and stepped out, disappearing into the shadows behind the cabin. The door was left slightly ajar. I sat there, heart pounding. Seconds felt like minutes. My instincts were screaming to leave, but a part of me worried that taking off might trigger something worse. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Suddenly, I heard rapid footsteps behind the car. Before I could react, the rear door swung open. He got back in, breathing heavily. His jacket was wet, but it wasn't raining. "Drive," he said sharply. I swallowed hard. "Where to?" "Back where you picked me up," he muttered. The entire ride back, neither of us spoke. The tension in the car was suffocating. I kept my eyes on the road, barely glancing in the mirror. But I could feel his stare burning into the back of my skull. Finally, we reached the original pickup spot. I put the car in park, ready for him to get out. But before exiting, he leaned forward again, much closer this time. I could finally see his face more clearly, pale, gaunt, eyes wide and unblinking. You picked me up tonight because it was your turn, he whispered. Next time, you might not be so lucky. Then he opened the door and stepped out, disappearing into the darkness. No goodbye. No closing the door fully. Just gone. I sat frozen for a long time before finally driving off. When I got home, I pulled up the trip history, but the ride was missing. No record of Nathan. No trip. Nothing. I contacted Uber support. They told me the same thing I've heard others say before: the trip might have been cancelled or a technical error wiped the data. But I know what I saw. I know who sat in my back seat that night. And sometimes, when I'm driving late, I still check my rearview mirror a little too often, afraid that one day, he might request another ride.